If your creative push has helped you, you can help the show by shopping on Amazon.com. All you have to do is head to yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. That will take you right there, and you can shop how you normally would. A small percentage of your purchases will go directly to helping cover the costs of creating, hosting, and maintaining your creative push. And especially with the holidays coming up, you can make a big difference just by buying the things you were going to anyway. Again, that's yourcreativepush.com/Amazon, and thank you for thinking of the show and for helping out. Your Creative Push, episode 182.
You can't just go about life, not asking for what you need, because if you don't, then no one's going to give it to you.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Nyki Way. Nyki is a San Francisco Bay illustrator who was born in Boulder, Colorado. She's inspired by nature, civil rights, psychology, and emotion. In her art therapy blog, Painting Your Own Reality, she offers a glimpse into her struggles with depression and psychosis, as well as her new appreciation for life, to help others to transform their lives into the exact life that they want. And Nyki, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I was wondering, could we start with you telling us kind of a brief creative biography, how you got to the point you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've basically been drawing my whole life. Ever since I could remember, I've had a pencil or crayon in my hand doing something. And I luckily came from a family that supported my art. So, they kind of really pushed me to follow my dreams, and I've just been doing it ever since. It's just brought me to places all over the world, just doing my art, doing my thing.
Absolutely. Did you ever have any kind of struggles, any kind of resistances that held you back?
Yeah, I think my biggest one is, the fear of not succeeding. It's really competitive, I'd say, in the art world. You have a lot of people, especially on the internet, that are basically doing the same exact thing you're doing, and you have to try and find your own kind of group in that. And I think, I have this big fear of not being good enough and not having like a fan base. But it changes every so often, because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not good enough, but then I'll have like a really big person to reach out to me and say, oh, you're great, so it kind of breaks that thought that I have. But the resistance is just that fear, of not being great, but you just have to believe it in your brain,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, is that it though? Is it just finding, that one person that reaches out to you that says, oh, this is great, to get you through that? Or is there any kind of other tricks to kind of push yourself through that?
Well, I don't know how much you know about my blog, but It's mostly about like my mental health struggles. And, that's been like a big part too, is kind of taking care of my well-being in addition to pushing myself as an artist. And I think a lot of artists have, kind of like this darker side that prevents them actually from like putting out their best work, because, they have that fear and they have that self-doubt. But I think I really just try everything I can, I'll just keep pushing through it, keep drawing, keep practicing. If I can't, get to, get a model or someone to draw from, I'll just like go out on the street and like draw random people. It's like, you just have to go and put yourself out there. And if you don't do that, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can we get into that a little bit about your blog and your story, and tell us how that started and how it led up to that? Yeah.
So I grew up in a college town, Boulder, Colorado. Growing up in a college town, you get exposed to a lot of things that, maybe growing up in suburbia maybe wouldn't happen. So at a young age, I was like doing drugs and exploring kind of that realm, because I was trying to escape kind of any way I could. And I really didn't find any sort of release or any sort of happiness really until I found art. And I didn't know that like that was a thing that people did, to like feel better. I just didn't even have access to that. My only kind of influence was the Disney Channel growing up. Cause, my parents weren't around much. So it was like the TV was kind of everything. So I don't know. I think going from, that kind of environment, I really had to, look deep inside myself and find like a place where I felt okay, and I felt okay drawing. When I was growing up in Colorado, I realized my senior year of high school that I was extremely unhappy, and that there was basically two options. One was kill myself and the other was not. And I ended up calling my dad that night and saying like, hey, like, this is kind of it. Like, I don't know, like, where I see my future. Like, I don't even see it. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I don't want to be here. And he basically said, okay, well, like, what are we going to do? And I said, I guess I need to go somewhere. And he sent me to a place for adolescents that was kind of like a drug rehab, but I wasn't really like addicted to drugs. I was doing them, but it was more of as a means of escape. Once I went to that place, it totally changed my life around and gave me this like new perspective. And I received so much love from the people that, just were there. And it like really just changed my perspective on everything. And I ended up going to college in San Francisco, and I was inspired to write this blog that was basically just about like trying to help other people like going through the same thing that I went through, because it's like you feel so alone. And I think having that stuff on the internet, it's more accessible to people. And, I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of people are going through a lot of the same things that you are, whoever's listening. And that's one of the purposes of this podcast, is to kind of, find that kind of community. But thank you for sharing, because I know that that's, a dark time and you've kind of started over. But at the same time, your blog is amazing. It's a great resource for anybody that is going through those same kinds of struggles to see that you are not alone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was the purpose, is like, because I felt so alone during that time, where I really thought that like no one felt the way I felt, that like no one was thinking these thoughts of like, oh, like what's the point of life? Like, like why does everyone suck? And it was like, that was like my mentality for so long. And until I was exposed to this other way of thinking, it changed my life, and I just want to share it with everyone I can.
What would you say is like the number one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is maybe struggling from that right now, somebody who is having those thoughts right now?
Man, I mean, I honestly have to give a lot of my growing to therapy. I go to therapy every week, once a week, for an hour, and it's an expensive thing to do, but I mean, I don't think I'd be who I am without hearing people like that, having someone consistently to talk to, having someone in your life all the time that's always there for you no matter what. A lot of the time people can find that in their family. I sometimes can, not all the time. I think it's really just reaching out. You can't just go about life, not asking for what you need, because if you don't, then no one's going to give it to you. So just like go out and get what you need. That's just like my only advice.
Absolutely. Paint your own reality.
Yeah, totally.
Reality. Well, can you actually talk about that a little bit? What's the meaning of the title of your blog?
Oh, well, like, God, I don't know. I came to San Francisco like a shell almost of a person. Like I had this like kind of base of a person like growing, I had the seed was planted, and then I went to art school, and all of a sudden it was like this whole world opened up where I could like paint like everything in my brain. I finally had the skills to execute what I was thinking. I don't know. And instantly that like kind of clicked that I was like, oh, I have to paint my own reality. Like I can't just like wait around and wait for things to change. I have to like go paint the world,
Yeah. And I think no matter what people are going through, I think everybody goes through stuff, and it might not be as severe as, what you kind of went through, but to use your creative pursuit, to use your art, to use whatever it is that, you kind of have like as this thing to help to get what is inside of you out. And I think the best kind of form of therapy with your art is to be able to express yourself and the things that you're going through as honestly as you can. And so I applaud you.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. That's like the whole goal is like so many people are just suppressing all this stuff in this social media world. It's like only put out the good, like let people see that, your Instagram pictures are pretty, but it's like you have to talk about the stuff that's bad and the stuff that hurt you because it makes you a better person.
Absolutely. The dark is sometimes the fastest way to connect with people.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you never know happiness until you have, sadness. I really started feeling, really good, happy moments when I had those bad ones, because I can compare it to something so horrible,
Absolutely. Would you say we've kind of touched on your worst moment?
Oh God, no way.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. In that case, what would your worst moment be?
I think emotionally, is my childhood, I'd say. But I think my worst moment in the art world is like I get scammed a lot, and that's really because I'm really trusting. I'm way too trusting in people. Yeah, it's like sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll do the work, and then because usually I require a half up front. And sometimes I won't do that when I'm like, oh, they seem nice, and then they never pay me, and then I do all the work.
Oh wow!
So that happens a couple times, but it doesn't stop me from doing what I love,
What advice would you give that to people to not do that, to not be nice?
Yeah, we'll definitely require the half up front. That'll protect you, and I usually have a contract, so every time you can use the contract, use the contract.
Where can people learn about that kind of stuff, like with contracts and stuff like that?
Oh, wow. It's a hard world. It took me a long time to really construct mine, and I've had it looked over by a couple lawyers. You really want like the most firm thing to protect yourself, but even then it's sometimes not enough. I think the only thing you can do is just try and get it to as many people to look at it, and if you want to learn how to write it, just Google everything.
Google everything, yeah. Google or YouTube everything. You can find anything you need to know for free.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hell, I don't even think I should have gone to art school. Like when I'm looking at it, you can see all the same stuff that I learned,
Yeah, but would you say that you regret going to art school? For people listening, she's a senior.
Oh yeah, at Academy of Art. I don't know. I don't regret going to school. Maybe I regret going to school in San Francisco because it's so expensive. Maybe that's about it. But going to art school was probably one of the best experiences because, like I said before, it's like I can now execute what comes to my mind. And I think you can do that also by learning on the internet, but you have to be really proactive. You got to make it your full-time job if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, if you don't have that self-discipline, then maybe that's not the way to go. But how about, do you have like a best or most triumphant creative moment?
I think my best feeling moment would be probably when I realized that I could make a career drawing. Because, before it was like I just kind of used it to, get me through stuff. It was like I needed it to, make me feel good or to escape or, process what was going on in my life. But like all of a sudden when I realized like, oh, I could go to college for this and I could potentially like make money and support myself doing something that I'm extremely passionate about. Like that was such a good thing to learn. And that was the big change, And I was like, well, now I'm really going to start working for it because like, I don't want to work behind a desk. I don't want to, have that 9 to 5. I want to work from home and drink coffee and paint on my floor.
Well, good for you for figuring that out. Would you say that like it's changed for you then, now that it's a part of your path, like how you're going to make money and how you're going to support yourself? Does it change then from, like you said, a form of escape or a form of, self-therapy?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because I get quite a few commissions from people that are specific, which kind of takes away my creative inclination. And so I think, I don't know, I have to balance it out. So it's like before I would kind of use art like all the time, would just be like, oh, I'm just going to doodle whatever happens or like let it flow. And I would do that a lot. But I don't know, once you have that like other side where you have to make it for a person and it goes like in a magazine or, in some sort of publication, it's like it has to be so much better and it has to like look a certain way and have like a certain finish. And now I just try to balance it. So it's like I'll do a lot of those. And then on the side, it's like I'll be in my sketchbook, like drawing weird monsters or something. So, you really just have to like try and balance it as much as you can. But I still use it as an escape and, kind of as a like coping skill. But I also have to, do the stuff I don't want to do, but it's still fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and with all those different, like you got commissions, you've got your own personal work, how do you, and school, not to mention, how do you kind of balance your time?
Man, I'm just always working. Any like little time, I'll be like in Uber and I'll whip out my iPad and start sketching, or like I said before, I'll just like go to coffee shops and doodle people. And like everyone's probably, if you've lived in San Francisco, you're in my sketchbook. You just gotta do what you gotta do and make ends meet. And sometimes if you can't, you ask for like an extension. Sometimes you can't get it. You just have to work and see what happens.
Yeah, find those microseconds, like you said, when you're in an Uber, instead of taking a nap or just kind of observing the scenery and getting lost in your head, just take that as time to get stuff done, or at least get your own stuff done. Yeah,
like I'm trying to use every millisecond. Like even this morning, I like met with one of my instructors, and then right after I was like, oh, I got to go to the art store, and then came back here to do this. So it's like, you got to find all those little tiny moments that you can do things.
Well, we do appreciate you squeezing us in. I'm really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So we've already kind of touched on this, but what would you say that your art and your creativity brings to your life?
Oh, it brings me so much joy. And I don't know, I couldn't even describe to you how happy it makes me to look around my apartment and see stuff I've made. And, like sometimes I look at stuff and I'm like, holy shit, that came out of my head. I don't know if I can say this.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, sometimes I look at that and I'm like, wow, like who knew I could ever be capable of something like that? And that's a good feeling. To me, it just means like, especially when I like get a new follower on Instagram or something, it just validates that what I'm doing is the right thing and that I'm doing it. I have something good and I'm going to keep running with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, that not only the getting new followers and getting support for your work and people kind of validating the thing that you're making, but also looking around and having these tangible things that you're like surprised came out of you. It's almost like it came from a different person. I think there's nothing better than that, and it gets addicting too to keep creating like that.
Yeah, and when I find like a new art supply, it's even worse. Like
a toy.
Yeah, it's like a toy. Like I just found out about this like sculpting material called Super Sculpey, and
what's it called?
Yeah, it's this polymer clay. It's so cool. It like never dries out, and like you can do absolutely anything with it. And it's so awesome. And I made all my family members Christmas presents, like with little, little sculptures. And I thought that was so cool because it's just like a whole new experience, a whole new way to show the world something.
Very cool. How much sculpting have you done? Is that a new thing for you just because of this, or?
Yeah, it's brand new, and I didn't realize how fun it could be. I didn't, and like I actually realized this, especially the animators at Pixar, they build all their characters, in a sculpture form, and then they photograph them and paint them. And I thought that was fascinating because it's like you can get the perfect light and shadow, and I don't know, it's just a whole other way of thinking, and that's always just a cool thing to learn.
Yeah, not only what was it called again?
Super Sculpey.
Super Sculpey. Not only the Super Sculpey and just finding like a new thing like that, but just finding a new interest or a new way to kind of express yourself. I think a lot of people are hesitant to do that, to purchase Super Sculpey or purchase something and go a new way when they have so much to learn with their kind of current way that they define themselves as a painter, a writer, whatever it may be. But it is important to kind of deviate and to try new things out because you never know what you're going to learn.
Totally. And I think artists, especially, once they find their style, they don't want to break it. So I think it's really good, especially to like try different mediums, and because, your style could change all the time, and, you kind of have to change to stay relevant. So it's a fun process, I think.
Do you have like a greatest inspiration or even like a favorite book, YouTube clip, or anything else you draw inspiration from?
Oh, I draw inspiration from everywhere. I'm such like a weirdo. I walk down the street and I'll see like really cool doorknobs that I like, or like textures on walls, you know, where like the paint is flaking off. And for some reason, that's what inspires me. I sometimes get inspired by other artists. You know, like there's this one girl who does really cool murals in the Bay Area. Her name's Lauren YS. She just makes like these most outrageous, I don't even know what to call them, creations. Those are the kinds of things where I'm like, oh, like I want to do something like that. And that can be inspiring. But I think the things that are truly inspiring are just like the mundane kind of things that other people would overlook, but I see like so much detail, and I don't know, I see something special in everything. So I think I find those things more inspiring than like the big obvious, you know, like I'm inspired by Mount Rushmore or something, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's like I'm inspired by like a little divot in a rock or like a texture somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the more that you create, the more that you become this thing that you want to be, this artist, this creative individual, like the more that you see the world in that way. And I love your answer, because there is beauty and inspiration in everything around you. And you know, as a writer, they say like once you become a writer, or once you're a writer, you can't read anymore because you're like just trying to like steal stuff from people, or getting jealous of what other people are doing. You just see things in a different way. And I think that's very true. And I think it's the same for kind of any creative person. You just see the world in a different way. And I think that's a thing that you should embrace.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I remember my family, because I've always been into art, and they'd be like, oh, like, let's take you to like some galleries or like the museum. And I'd be like, I don't want to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I want to, you know, I want to come up with my own stuff. And I think when you're really stuck, it can be a really good tool, you know, to look at other artists and see what, you know, other things have been created. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, I want to steal stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I want to steal that, like, you know, that way they use that brush stroke, or, you know, that color. But it's like when I'm stuck, those are good things. But yeah, it's like, I think to truly be unique, you just got to like almost shut off the world and like just find the little things that like you enjoy.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Before we get to the final push, I have one very important question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Westworld?
Oh my God.
Because you wrote a blog post about Westworld kind of when it first started out. So did you watch it all?
Yeah, I did watch it all, and it's so crazy because I called something in it.
Okay.
What was it? Because, you know, my whole blog post was about how the hosts have coping skills.
Right.
And, I commented about Dolores painting, and like they only had like one really short scene of her painting in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then like later in the season, they like talk about it, and they're like, oh, well, like all the hosts have that built in. They're like built around it. I thought that was like the coolest thing. And I was like, oh, I totally called that. But such a good show, like amazing everything. The characters, the plot, such a cool idea. And you can tell they're totally gearing up for the next season, which I'm totally excited about.
Yeah, they kind of lost me because so one of the things we talk about is distractions, and TV is like, or at least used to be, my number one distraction. Mm-hmm. So I usually pick one show to watch like at a time, and Westworld was it. And it was kind of losing me during the middle, but man, that finale brought it all back. Yeah,
exactly. I was the same way. I was kind of like, oh, kind of falling off. But I think, you know, all seasons kind of do that to fill the amount of episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so cool. I can't wait for the next season.
Yeah, me
Think
too.
About though, that was the most shocking to me.
Oh man, so crazy. And yeah, but it's not coming back for 2 years.
Oh, no way. They did this with Rick and Morty, and I'm waiting for that too.
Oh man, it's the worst. But yeah, from what they say, like the season 1 was supposed to be the like a prequel almost to the show. They have it all planned out, and it's going to be insane. But whatever.
I'm sure it is.
All right, Nyki, it's time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired, and just give them your best words of advice and really push them to pursue their creative passions.
All right. Listen, all you creative beings. If you have to do anything in this world, just keep creating and expressing yourself as much as you can, even if you feel like you have nothing to share or nothing to say. Just share it and be who you are, because no one else is going to be you for you. And you have to go and fight for the things you want in life. And if anything happens to you, just know it makes you a better person and it'll make you strong. And that's it.
I love it. Perfect.
Cool.
Nyki, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And you can find Nyki at her website, which is nykiway.com, which is NYKIWAY.com. And she is pretty much everywhere else, especially Instagram, as Nyki Way, NYKIWAY. Nyki, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I thank you to Nyki again for coming on the show. I loved her story about going to art school and about kind of acquiring the skills that she needed to get what was in her head out. What an amazing thing that it is when you are able to kind of achieve those skills to effectively execute your creativity into the world. And if that's something you struggle with, if you're afraid of even trying to approach your creative passion because you've tried it before and you just couldn't quite get it right, couldn't quite effectively communicate your ideas or your thoughts, just keep trying. You don't necessarily have to go to school. You don't have to pay a ton of money, but just keep learning. Find ways to learn for free online. Just keep practicing and you will reach that point. And I know it can be frustrating when your hands won't quite do what you want them to do, or you can't quite find the perfect sentence, the perfect way to express what you're feeling if you're a writer, or if you don't have like the technical skills yet as a musician to put out that song that's in your head. Just keep trying. It won't be an overnight thing. It won't be this, sudden flash of genius. You will have those moments, but it'll be a slow and steady progression, which, as we've talked about before, sometimes you don't even notice the progress because you are along for the ride. So just keep sticking with it and keep looking back at your old stuff and see that progress so that you can be motivated to continue onward and upward. And then obviously another important topic that Nyki brought up is mental health, and especially around this time of year, I know a lot of people struggle with depression. They struggle with, those lows in life. And I don't care who you are, you do have those highs and you do have those lows. Some people experience lower lows than others. And I really thank Nyki for being so honest and open on this podcast and also in her blog, in her social media, to really kind of communicate that message that no, you are not alone. You are not the only person that struggles with those lows, that struggles with depression, psychosis, any number of mental disorders. Help is available for you. Community is available for you, and you do not have to go through it alone. So definitely check out her blog. She has great resources there. Again, nykiway.com, NYKIWAY.com. I do hope, though, that you had a happy holiday. I hope that you are smack dab in the middle of a lot of free time, some time off to spend with family, but also to get to your creative passion, to utilize that time to really get ahead in your goals, whatever goals you have set for yourself. And speaking of goals, I'm sure that a lot of you are thinking of New Year's resolutions. So on Thursday's episode, we will have a solo episode about New Year's resolutions. I have an interesting new idea that you might not have thought of before. So a little homework assignment for you. Think about what you want to have done for the new year by the end of the year. So try to think of something that come New Year's Eve 2017 going into 2018, if you looked back on next year or the previous year, if you look back on 2017 and you're thinking, wow, I am so proud of myself, I am so happy that I finally did X, I want you to think about what X is. A year's worth of work, if it's one big project that you've been putting off, some big giant task, or if it's a body of work that you want to have done for the new year. Whatever your goal is, think about what you would be really stoked to have done in 1 year's time, and we will talk about that on Thursday. But for today, I hope you were inspired to go and get your work done, so go and get it done, and we will be here for you, as I said, on Thursday if you need that push again. I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.